Okay, so I'm going to do my opening procedures again. I'm gonna knock on the door. I'm going to introduce myself. I'm going to provide privacy because I didn't do that in the beginning when I was actually doing her suctioning. So I would have corrected that. When I come in, I would look at all the doctor's orders, make sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing while introducing myself. Technically, I should have just done this right after, so I didn't have to introduce all myself. I'd get her in the good Fowler's position. I would identify the patient, and she would tell me who she is, and I would look at her wristband, and she would agree that she is Alice and that her birth date's on 2/22, and then we would shoot the breeze about that, how that's my birthday too. Just kidding, but it really is. Okay, so I have identified her. I have made sure that I have the right patient, the right orders. I would double check that everything, her IV, all that good stuff. I would put an oximeter on her, a pulse ox on her. And then I would just explain to her that I was just coming in to clean out her catheter. Cannula. What is it called? It's a catheter. What's it called? My brain's pulling a blank.
You want me to read?
No, I'm good. So I'm just gonna know that I would have double checked if the word was catheter or cannula because I'm there today. Okay, so I would know the right one. So she would understand what it was that I was doing. I'm just gonna try and clean up all of her mess. And with this one, there's a lot of ways that you can become unsterile, but you wanna just make sure you do the very best that you can to stay as sterile as you can. So you'd get all your supplies, and that's going to be your hydrogen peroxide and your saline. With this, you're going to want to, I'll have washed my hands, gloved for anything that I was doing beforehand. I can come in here with this one and try to stay as, Joy did this super good, but you kind of like, okay, you try not to touch anything. So Joy like flipped it seems like, and it was really awesome the way she did it, but that's as good as it's going to get for me. So I am going to have on regular gloves, no I'm not, just kidding, I haven't done that yet. I am going to have taken this little thing that was underneath my gloves, and I would step away, open it up, keeping that 1-inch border, and I would put the shiny side down so that I now have my sterile field. I would have made sure that I didn't touch any of the edges or that I would have not have contaminated by doing those things. This is the part that Joy was a genius on, and she just kind of like did this. But you don't want to shake it and stuff like that over your sterile field. Now with this, I can lip this to get off any gunk that's been used before, unless it's a new one. I'll make sure I label and date it. I'm gonna pour the fluid into, I'm gonna pour this saline into the big container and into one of the small containers. So I've done that and fill it about halfway full. Then I'm gonna make sure that I remember which one I do the hydrogen peroxide in, because this is where I'm going to pour into here, and that one's going to be halfway full. And I would not have made sure that that didn't touch anything, because that would have made things unsterile. So now I have my gloves on, and I'm going to take out a cannula. I don't know why things sound so weird sometimes. Okay, so when you do this, make sure that you touch that plate so that it doesn't come away. Because even though you have the strings there, it's still, you need to be careful. So make sure you brace that plate and it doesn't pull when you pull this out. Come over here and just put this into your hydrogen peroxide container to soak. Then, now these aren't sterile by any means, but I can take this and I am going to make sure that I hold it in a good spot, but I'm going to take off this dressing, this old gunky dressing, and I'm gonna access this for the taco. This is gonna show me the type, amount, color, odor, just so that I can document what kind of nastiness is coming out of her. So this I'm going to glove up and double glove so that I can put it in a biohazard bag. That would have been so much smoother in real life because that was a hot mess. And I would have done it so that none of the other hand touched the gloves or any of that type of stuff. So I'm gonna wash my hands again just because I like to and because it's smart. And I'm going to be putting on my gloves for the sterile field. So I'm gonna grab this by the cuff, step away, don't let my body touch anything or my belly touch anything that it shouldn't. And this is gonna come in here, step away. Seriously. And I would have put those on super, super good without touching anything that I shouldn't have. Okay, so now I want to use, I can spread all this crap out and use it for what I need for her coming up. One thing to note when you're doing, when you're replacing her pad, you wanna make sure that you do not ever cut one because those fibers can get back into her lungs and it's not good. So the first thing I want to do is I want to come over here and I want to clean my cannula. I think that's the word. It's like when words lose meaning. So when you do this, don't do it over anything. Try and keep it super clean. You can go in, and this is already fallen apart, but you want to go in with the little chimney sweeps and then do the outside of it too. If you're done with this, discard of it and throw it away, but I'm gonna keep that right there for a second. I would note that that drop did touch my sterile field and so that I might have to start over, but that's just for this. Anyway, I can use things like my little pipe cleaners and go in with those to clean it because you can see all the gunk that's in there that needs to be cleaned out. And don't do it over what's already existing, but don't break your sterile field. So I'm not gonna throw this away because I don't want to. Waste not, want not. So it's not really dirty. Okay, so now I'm gonna rinse this off because you don't want to put hydrogen peroxide back in her neck. So rinse it off, just touching the very, very tip, and I would not have touched it with this hand. This one's gonna stay sterile. And then tap to get all that crap off. All the fluid off, just tap it on the sides and make sure that it's there. Then come over here and you can make sure you break, you can, I'm gonna touch just the tip here because I don't know how this works, because I wanna make sure I still hold on to that plate when I'm pushing this back in. So that's back in and everything's fine. Now I wanna make sure that I clean out clean the surrounding areas. But that part was all sterile. I didn't touch anything that I shouldn't have. This is where I'll grab my gauze and I can just dip this in the big container full of the saline water, squeeze it out a little bit, come in here and start wiping underneath this plate. When you do this, wipe from the middle where the stoma is outwards so that it's not wiping anything towards the stoma. So I'm not gonna have been flinging anything around. I'm gonna make sure that I keep this contained and not in any way around her face. I wouldn't be touching her face and things like that. But I'm wiping all of that. I'm gonna discard of that in a biohazard bag, and then I can even take one of these little Q-tips, get it wet over here. Don't reach over anything, you don't have to. Make sure this is in your line of sight the whole time. come up and you can just get right in there, right against the stoma, but make sure that you're going from the inside out, not pushing anything in. So this is going in a biohazard bag too, and I want to make sure that anytime I place something back under there that it's dried. So we can take one of these and just kind of pat it dry because it's super good and clean now. I did an awesome job at cleaning her. And so I'm going to make sure that that's all patted, clean, dry, everything there is fine, biohazard garbage. And now I can replace this, this pad for her. When you're doing this, just make sure that you're super, super careful not to lift too much away or pull unnecessarily. Make sure you're not touching any yucky crap when you're doing this, that it stays as clean as you can, and tuck this back under here. Plastic people and plastic gloves don't get along, so this doesn't look as good as it would if I was doing this in real life, I promise, Joy. So now I've got this up under here, and I know that that's all clean, dry, and I know that I need to just, the last thing that I need to do is just change her necktie. Her necktie is on this side, so her necktie is on this side actually. So I'm gonna wanna do it on the opposite side. And I'll take my necktie and just fold it in half. I think I'm probably gonna change my gloves because they've been messing with her gunk and I don't wanna get any of that on there. So I would have changed my gloves before I picked up my necktie. I'm gonna wash my hands again, and this would go in the biohazard garbage. Wash my hands again, and then I'm just gonna get some normal gloves because I want to. We'll see if that's right or wrong because I don't know. I do know, just kidding. Okay, so I've got my other gloves on. I wouldn't do it all up in her face. And now I have got, this is fine. I've used all the stuff that was on here cleaning her, and this is gonna go in on the opposite side of where the tie is. So when I do that, just keep that. You would always wanna make sure that you looked at this little thing too to make sure that everything's good as far as the air balloon inside of her that's gonna keep it in there and all that good stuff. So come in here, don't ever undo the tie before you have to until the other one is secure. They could cough and it could shoot out of them. So plastic, gloves, don't get along. And I've come in here, I'm just gonna make my new knot on this side, opposite of where it was before. So now I've got this knot over here, and I'm gonna feed it through, and she'll be super cooperative and helpful, but this is gonna look awkward. And I'm gonna come over here with this and I would put my hand all up in her face, but I would try to make sure that I could get this. And I'm gonna do a square knot on her on this side, not undoing the other one until very end. So I've got this, she's clean, she's happy, right over left, left over, left over right. And so now she has that square knot. Okay, so there's my square knot. And I wanna make sure that I put 2 fingers in between that because I don't wanna choke her out. It's just the polite thing to do. So I've got that. I'm gonna take some scissors now that the other one's in place, and I can come in here with safety scissors and clip it away right here, and then just make sure that I feed it out, cutting it in like as little places as possible to avoid any of that fringy fray that comes from strings. That would get cut off and discarded in the biohazard thing. I would just make sure everything looks good, check her aux, and make sure that all of her, has everything that she needs, and I would have taken off my gloves, washed my hands again, and done anything that she needed as far as making sure her bed's back in the comfortable position, a safe position, and that she has all the things she needs, like the call light, the remote, the table at her side. If she needs anything at all, she'd have it there. And I would make sure that I cleaned up my mess and that I recorded everything from this, as well as how she tolerated the suctioning and all of that stuff. Make sure you document everything as how she tolerated it, as well as if you've seen any abnormalities. And so I would clean up my stuff and I would go.